Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. Today I'm excited to be joined by my good friend, Chris Glanden. Chris is not only a cybersecurity professional, he's also a fellow podcaster, and that's kind of how we connected. I was on the Barcode podcast back years ago, and Chris has been on several of my podcasts, and we get to run to each other at conferences and stuff. We've done some collaboration on the Cyber Circus network. Chris has really got a really cool story. You know, a lot of people that do content creation focus on one single thing, and Chris does multiple different things and does them well. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Phillip. It's always good to see you and catch up with you, man.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to join me today.
Definitely, man.
So before we get started, if you wouldn't mind sharing your hacker origin story, kind of how you got started in cybersecurity up to what you're doing today.
My hacker origin story is not real unorthodox. I mean, I came up through the IT sector. I think the difference with me is that I didn't have any official training going into IT. I got into IT pretty much immediately after high school when I had my first son. So, you know, I needed to get into the workforce at that point to support. And so got into IT, worked up through help desk to staff or support, pretty much just all learning hands-on, right? And just getting, but I think got drawn into security around 2011. So I worked IT from, late 90s up to 2011. In 2011, a good friend of mine left JP Morgan Chase, where I was working at the time, to start a security program at a small community bank here in Delaware. And basically said, come with me, I know you're interested in security, and we'd love to get you in and first level analyst, right? So I left IT, started focusing on security then. About 2 months later, I got my CEH. So 2 months in security with a CEH at that point, it's just, there is no return. Not only that, I just really became infatuated with the cyber culture. I got that CEH down at Hacker Halted in 2013, first conference. And so I really got to see the inner workings of the cybersecurity community happening, which was something I've never seen before on the IT side. Not to say it doesn't happen, but for me, that's what really drew me in. And so at that point, I just continued developing my security skills and left the enterprise around 2016, got into consulting, worked for a company called GuidePoint here in the Mid-Atlantic. I'm based right outside of the Philadelphia region, and the Mid-Atlantic area here it's very GuidePoint heavy. So it was a really good move for me at the time. I really like the pace of consulting. I like being able to, learn new things and constantly being challenged. Worked in consulting for a while. And then 2020 hit. You know the story, pandemic. I said, I'm going to start a podcast like every other person on earth at that time. I just didn't know how long it would last. I always wanted to do a podcast. Understanding that hacker culture, I never really got to, outside of the conferences that were absent at that time, really were able to talk to people within that hacker culture. And so I took that opportunity to gain access to some of these people that typically probably would not have time to chat with me on the podcast they've never heard of. So the podcast took off, podcasting, and then started Barcode Security LLC a year later as my own firm. And so, that pretty much leads us up to today's time frame.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty amazing how time flies by with the podcasting starting up in 2020, and here we are almost 6 years later.
Yeah. You were included in that first run. I think I probably had you on within 4 or 5 months of when I started. So yeah, and you've been doing it, a long time too. And I think
Yeah.
I read an article in SecTruth about you, and I said, man, I got to talk to this guy. But we had mentioned in the intro, like I don't really focus on one particular area of security. I focus on unique stories, and I think that's what drew me to you initially was your story, and that's something that I still try to continue and carry out to the episodes of today.
It was probably the article you probably read was probably the one by Cybersex dude.
Yes,
It was on Sec Juice.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
read your story when you wrestled the bear, and I think it was just all about how unorthodox your story was, and those are the stories that draw me in, right? Like just understanding that everyone in security has their own unique journey, and just trying to find out who that person is and what that story is.
So very cool. So the podcast is going good. Are there any big plans for the podcast in 2026?
I mean, that's a good question. So I just dropped episode 130 today with our buddy John Aff, aka Panda. If you don't know Panda, go connect with him online. I met him at Hack SpaceCon this year with you, which was an awesome conference. In terms of the podcast, I'm just going to continue to do. I'm sort of on a weekly to bi-weekly cadence right now, and so depending on how things look tomorrow, I'm still hoping to continue that cadence. It's been manageable for me. And then I like to continue the live shows too. I think I'm averaging maybe 4 to 5 live shows now a year, whether that's a private show or whether that's at a conference. I typically do my Black Hat live show. I'll do a Secure World Philly show in the spring. So the live show just brings a different energy. And, I definitely want to continue doing that as well. So yeah, I'm going to keep running it until I get tired of it. But at this point in time, there's so many stories that need to be told and so many great people out there that need to be heard that, I don't see me slowing down at all.
Yeah. And speaking of that, if you wouldn't mind sharing about your documentary background, because you've done 2 documentaries so far, and they've done pretty well, but your last one seems to have really taken off.
I love filmmaking. So when I was done high school, I went to community college briefly, and I focused on filmmaking because that's always been part of something that I love to do. I love having that creative outlet. So creative storytelling has sort of always been ingrained in what I enjoy doing. So yes, two documentaries. And the first one, I guess, is about 3 or 4 years old now. It's called Inhuman. It was all around the weaponization of AI. And then the second one, which you referred to, is called I Am Machine, featuring the world's first augmented ethical hacker, Len No. He premiered it in Vegas this past August during DEF CON at Starbase. We also premiered it. Our East Coast premiere was at Hacker Halted in Atlanta in October. We'll be in Houston next week, I believe, and Grapevine in January. So I'm so happy to see this story getting recognized. We just got selected for our 3rd film festival last week. So yeah, man, I just love, and I think it kind of spawns out of the podcast, right? It's sort of like I got through the podcast and I still enjoy doing the podcast, but I wanted to go back to my roots in the filmmaking and just start taking some of these stories that I'm hearing and putting them on the screen. And I think that's what really drives me. And I want to keep doing it. I'm going to enjoy the ride with the ones that I've done. But yeah, it's something that I don't see myself stopping, as the years go on, just trying to, take those stories that I think spawn out of the cyber world that mainstream needs to hear.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And I think part of that, you did an awesome job with the documentary, but I think part of what really seemed to help a lot is, people in the cybersecurity community, we don't get to see a lot of documentaries that are related to us at all. And to see one of our own in a documentary, and not only is it getting to learn Len's amazing story, it's also a way for people to get to learn about cybersecurity professionals and realize that we're multidimensional.
Yes, I agree. And I think that when I started working with Len, we had the same thought process in that, he has a very unique story, and we've already seen it where, Hollywood tarnishes the vision, the real vision. And so part of what he enjoyed was that this story was being spread through the security industry. And so that's what I want to bring, is that level of realness of what I know is real, and project that to the masses.
Very cool. It's awesome that the different events that you're being invited to for the video, for the documentary, as well as some of the awards that you're being nominated for. So that's really awesome to see this success.
Man, I would have never even felt that would be possible. Set out to do this. Kevin Pentecost was really heavily involved with the editing. Has a background in video editing and graphic design, but has never done anything on this level. And so I'm really proud of the work that we were able to put up through. I think it was really high level, really high octane, and top quality. So hopefully the audience will be able to get to see it soon. Right now, the only way to really see it is through a private screening, like the ones I mentioned, or at a film festival. And we're actually talking to a few distributors, Netflix, Hulu. We're talking to Paramount as well. So we're trying to get that in the distribution pipeline before we release it publicly, but it will happen probably in the spring of next year. So I can't wait for everyone to see it, and if you're around the Texas area, or we're doing Philly also in December. If you're in those areas, make sure you reach out to me, and I'll let you know the details on, where we're screening it.
So yeah, it's really awesome. And it's really cool that Kevin did such an awesome job with the editing. And the cool thing is Kevin's just an amazing artist and very creative and stuff. But to be able to get someone that understands cybersecurity, understands what the community likes, opposed to hiring someone else to edit, which could still come out okay, but it just doesn't really hit the same way as, having someone like Kevin to do that.
Yeah, not only did he edit it, I mean, there were times that we were going through, the cutting room floor and bowl areas where he was like, hey man, we can throw this on the screen as hidden hidden message or Easter egg or whatever. So he was found in ideas too that were relevant to the story. And so he contributed way more than just, cut and splicing.
Well, that and him being a fellow podcaster, while that's not documentary, but he gets a lot of that, and they do a great job, him and Jason do, with Cyber Distortion. So that was great to have that help on your documentary.
For sure.
So yeah, it's very, very cool, and look forward to the one here in Grapevine next year. So that will be interesting. So this will be the third Lone Star Cyber Circus, correct?
This will be the third Lone Star Cyber Circus. Yeah, which we started 2 years ago. You've been part of both of them, so hopefully we'll get you there for this one as well. We typically have it at Hop and Sting in Grapevine, which is an awesome venue. We're going to switch it up this year because we're going to do a screening, so we're actually going to have it at the Palace Theater in Grapevine, which holds 400 people. Make sure you're there. Tell all of your friends. There's definitely going to be capacity for everyone, so we're looking forward to that. We're still trying to work on the logistics on whether we're going to do like a Q&A afterwards. But very much looking forward to that one. Yeah, Lone Star Cyber Circus is just fun, man. It's typically mid-December, but the people show up there. I love the North Texas community because you guys show up regardless, and I love that.
Yeah, we're lucky to have an amazing community here. So one of the things I wanted to discuss too is one of the things we're coming up on the anniversary of you kind of launching your conference speaking career.
Yeah, you're right. I wasn't even thinking about that. My first talk was at B-Sides Philly Lyric here, and so I'm doing it again. I enjoy poetry, I guess. I love challenging myself. I think I mentioned that to you before. And one of the things I've always struggled with was public speaking. And, after 5 years of doing the podcast, after doing film, I think part of that is just getting over the fear factor of getting in front of people. But, I'm basically telling a podcast on the mic in front of a room full of people. I'm still storytelling. I'm still trying to connect with people. And that's the way I approached it. And so over this past year, I've probably done 5 or 6 talks. And I think with each time I do it, I'm getting my cadence down, getting my rhythm down. I feel more confident about it. A lot of what I talk about is sort of off the bar. So I still get that side eye, but that's what I like. Like I would rather, get, those side eyes than, tell me I did a good job and, that's it. So I try to keep it, not controversial, but sort of edgy topics, which helps push me in the direction of doing more research and things like that as I'm preparing for these talks. But no, I'm really starting to love it. You are really one of the inspirations for me in starting to do that. And you gave me a lot of great tips on, how to develop those public speaking skills, which I took and, I'm still working on. But yeah, excited to do it. I got a new talk that I'm doing this year called Mind Game, which looks at the parallels of professional mentalists and cyber, both on the offensive and the defensive sides. So you look at a lot of the mentalism techniques like misdirection or behavioral nudging. So you take a look at the techniques that they use to influence others' decisions, and cyber attackers are using the same techniques. It's just in a different form factor. So hopefully that's entertaining for the crowd. I got a couple of different, live demonstrations and things like that. So it's exciting, man. It's exciting. I got about a month left to, refine anything that I need to refine, and yeah, it'll be good. But I appreciate you really being supportive in those efforts and helping me sort of sharpen the axe there.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I love to see my friends and love to see people succeed. But the funny thing was that besides Philly last year,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was your first talk, and it didn't seem like your first talk, but it makes total sense. You've been podcasting for a long time, and as podcasters, a lot of cases you're doing more speaking than you would if you were just purely doing conferences, because if you're doing an episode a week, so if you're hitting 40 to 50 episodes per year, then that's more than what most people are speaking wise. So that's a lot of practice that you're getting in speaking and stuff, and so it's just really interesting. That really surprised me that you hadn't, but it's really good to see that you overcome that fear and then be able to translate those skills into something else. And I think as far as building a personal brand and stuff, this was one of the pieces that was really missing, because, you offer an awesome podcast and documentaries. So getting out there in person, speaking to the crowds at these conferences and stuff, it's a good way to get introduced to them, to bring people to your podcast and to bring awareness to your documentaries.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I am working on that you mentioned. Now that you mentioned it, I'm working on starting my own mini-con next year. And I may have talked to you about this offline. I may have, and I don't remember, but I'm looking at starting something similar that allows those content creators to come in and sort of do what I did in terms of the getting in front of an audience. So Barcode Con is what it's tentatively labeled. We're shooting for April. We're shooting for Philly because that's where I'm based. But it's going to be I want it to be very content heavy. Like, instead of talk tracks, we'll have podcast tracks. And I'd love for you to come in for that as well. I'm looking to have, podcasters run 45-minute sessions. I'd like to have, film screenings there that were maybe provided by indie filmmakers that have stories along the cybersecurity lines. I'd like to have a CTF, but a little bit something, more immersive that I'm working on right now. So, it's really a conference built for content creators, but getting the data across, or the information across to your practitioners and your hacker communities. More to come on that, but that's something that I think I would love to have you in town for that if you're interested. But yeah, still very early on in the planning stages of that, but hopefully we'll get that going by April next year.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. Let me know when you're going to do it so I can get that on my calendar to make sure.
Definitely.
Yeah,
you travel. You travel, man. So I got to definitely get you the day early so you got that booked.
So that's really cool. So are you going to have any kind of educational opportunities there for folks that are aspiring content creators?
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things that we want to do is have some sort of tracks or training for aspiring podcasters in the security field, whether that's individuals or whether that could be, organizations or startups that are looking to start a podcast. I mean, I wish I had that when I started. I had friends like you that sort of guided me, but there was nothing within the community that was sort of that helped me get there. That was sort of a baseline blueprint for me to say, what work is good. What platform should I use? how do I stylize it to my brand? So these are all things that get asked of me often. And if I can provide that within this conference and be able to educate those that are looking to start brand building and content creating and help them get started, definitely. That's definitely something that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, that'd be awesome because like so many of us, it's been fortunate to have friends like yourself and others that we can ask, what kind of equipment you're using, what are you using to record, what are you using for editing, what are you using for transcripts, because, so much of this stuff I've learned has been through friends like yourself. Like one of the tools I was using for my transcripts for a while was a recommendation from you. And just, like whenever I'm looking for new cameras and stuff, there's people that I reach out to and different sound equipment and stuff. So it's been, yeah, so to be able to have a conference where you can go to and learn how to get started, because I really think, and I don't know what your thoughts are, but people really overcomplicate this when they're trying to get started.
I agree. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. And you also don't need to, experience the same mistakes that we all have done before. And we've all been through, we've been able to rectify, certain issues that we've encountered and say, oh, I mean, if I would have known this, this could have saved me X amount of time. So those are the things that we want to pass forward to, the next podcaster that's looking to do this. And so, yeah, it's another, issue I've had early on where the podcasters that were doing it at a very high level, and so I used to actually to be very guarded a lot with that information because they see it more competitive than more of a community effort. Like for me and you, it's community. Like we're friends, we're trying to build this community. I'd love to see more podcasters, do their thing. So I'm totally, I got my guard down if it comes to helping someone else, where I can. And that's the message that I want to put across.
So what's your advice for someone that wants to get started in podcasting?
Yeah, so it depends. I mean, if you're an individual or a business, I typically like to figure out what the objective is, right? It's like a pen testing scoping call. Like you got to get that discovery going in terms of what they want that outcome to be. Like, do they want to build their own brand? Do they want to speak to their their user base? Like what is the purpose of the podcast that you want to get going in and sort of build it from there? Like, do you want to have guests on the show where you're basically, getting information like this and being able to educate listeners? Or do you want to just talk? Like, do you want it to be solo hosted? So I think there's different flavors of podcasts, and it's just, finding out what they want to do and then finding out and helping guide them through the different options of what's going to best benefit their end game or their end goal.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting to see when you get into this, you try to decide on all the equipment and stuff. You decide, because when my first podcasts were all audio and then end up going and adding video to it. So that it makes such a big difference on, especially just adding the camera, adding video to it makes it takes a lot more. It's more time consuming and definitely takes a little more effort to do audio video opposed to just audio.
It does. And I think the platforms that host podcasts now have come a long way just within the past 5 years, being able to edit within the podcast through, all of the AI tools now as well. Once you determine what your end goal is for the podcast, then really walk through the technology involved, walk through, the content format that you're going to do, and then also what platform is going to work best for you. Are you going to edit yourself or are you going to outsource that? There's a lot of variables that come into play in terms of putting, a podcast together. I would not, you have to edit this out because I'm trying to think of the right word to say. I would never discourage someone from starting a podcast. I think it's great. I think it, helps you as a podcaster learn from others. And I think it also helps educate the community. So even though it looks like a lot of work, outside looking in, there's definitely resources that can help you streamline that. And again, folks like myself and Phillip are here to help you with that.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when you started. It seems so overwhelming, but then once you kind of get your workflow down, it doesn't seem as complicated. And that's like sometimes if you're wanting to outsource pieces of that, sometimes things are just so easy for you to do it yourself.
Yeah.
that it's hard to get someone to help. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and if you're really creative, you don't want to hand that off, right? You want to have that branding and that look and that vibe, you know, come from you and have your name on it. So you really got to be careful with that with outsourcing it. But there are resources that allow you to do that. But you
Yeah.
kill it, man. I don't know how you do it. Like I try to put out content, but you're at what, man? You're doing for a long time. You're at like 4 podcasts, right? 3 podcasts.
Well, this year I was hosting the Phillip Wylie Show, and then Simply Offensive, which I'm on season 2 of, and
Yes.
then the Phosphorus IoT Security podcast. So at one point I was doing three different podcasts, which
Yeah.
it gets pretty tough. And one of the things that I have to do each year is I try to buffer in some time that I'm not doing any kind of podcast, be done with speaking, because one of the things with speaking at conferences, it seems to get busier in the fall because, of course, you got October, which is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So a lot of people do conferences around that time. So doing all that stuff just kind of accumulates, and you start to get on the verge of burning out. And so I try to take most of December off and then part of January. So I end up with about a good month of not doing anything to just kind of recuperate. So I still want to continue to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You asked earlier like what I would recommend to those starting, and um you made a great point. Was there is a point where like you've been doing it for a long time, so I think you've pretty much cracked the code on being able to keep up with that cadence. But for those starting out, just do 1 a month. Do 1 a month, get the feel for it and what needs to go into it, and then dedicate yourself to doing 6 episodes. That's how I started. I said, I'm going to do 6 episodes, and I'll see where it takes me, because I felt like once I got to 6, it was okay. I have a good feeling now of what's going into it. I know how much time is going to be involved, and then I can sort of adjust my schedule to be able to deliver on those. So yeah, that's what I would say is, start slow, but dedicate yourself to 6. Don't stop after 1, because it's not going to be the way you expect it to be. So it'll take you a good 6 episodes to get that flow down.
Yeah, I agree. You just kind of get into it, decide, it takes time for you to get used to it, time for you to evolve and just really find out, is this for you or not? And then you get into it and things are going well. A lot of times just getting feedback from your audience and fellow content creators, what they think. If it's good, you keep going, because there's times I'm saying, man, should I just be done with this? I could watch more movies. I could just relax more. I could spend more time doing these other things. And then what ends up happening is I end up running into someone that watches the podcast or listens to the podcast. I get good feedback from them that it's helping someone. So I keep doing it. So it's interesting how that kind of works out. You just kind of on the verge of just saying, why am I spending all this time? Because it's not like you're making, I've made decent money this year, the best I've had yet, but I'm not making a living off of this stuff. And I could be, my free time, I could be resting or enjoying hobbies or going to the movies or spending more time with friends and stuff. But I do this, but you just keep doing it. It's just, you get the feedback, and as long as people get something out of it, it's good. I'll keep doing it.
Yeah, that's such a great feeling, isn't it? To get that
Yeah.
LinkedIn message like, hey, man, I listened to your podcast and I've really enjoyed it. I learned this, and I'm gonna go down this rabbit hole now. And it's like those conversations, that feedback, I think for me makes it all worth it.
Yeah. One of my most recent stories, I was at B-Sides DFW, our local Dallas Fort Worth B-Sides recently. And I was just kind of hanging out. And this young man comes up and says, "Hey, thanks for doing your podcast. I listened to your episode with B Dubs. B Dubs is one of our local community members." And he said, "I listened to your episode with her, and I started listening to your podcast." And he said that he's very introverted, shy, and has a hard time getting out. And that if it wasn't for the podcast, he wouldn't be able to come to the conference, wouldn't be able to introduce himself to me. And he even wanted a picture with me. So, I mean, this guy was to come out of his shell like that for the podcast. it just was a good feeling. It's like, yeah, this is, this is kind of a meant to be thing, and a good service they're able to provide. Keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's one of the no, go ahead, man. I'm skipping into podcast mode. Go ahead.
Oh,
I'm
no
not gonna
worries.
ask too many questions for you. Whenever we talk, man, you know how our conversations go.
Yeah. Yeah. Another experience is really good too is I had, and I actually mentioned their story during the Sands Difference Makers Award when I won that back in 2023, which congrats to you for being nominated. So I know that's coming up pretty soon. Best of luck on that.
Thank you.
But I met this couple of Hack SpaceCon. They came because I was teaching a workshop there. He was a construction engineer and she was a working mom. So they were busy. And so he's a construction engineer going to school to be a security engineer. And whenever he stepped away, his wife said, "Thanks for doing the podcast. Sometimes your podcast motivates him when I can't."
Wow.
And so she's just sharing, he's getting that encouragement from it. And that was just such a great feeling. That was one of the best experiences up to that point that I had experienced from doing the podcast. And so that's one of the big motivators to keep going. So I actually mentioned their story during the Difference Makers Award speech that I gave.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, yeah. Just hearing those stories, and those are the ones that you hear. Like, you don't even know how many people out there are being impacted by, you know, your message or your podcast to them. They take that information and you never hear from them. So, but when you do, it's again, it's just that extra level of motivation to keep going.
Yeah. It's kind of like you said, people will message you on social media, but one of the things is I highly recommend anyone you're doing a podcast, get out in the community and get to meet the listeners and stuff, because then you can get, some good feedback, get a good vibe for what you're doing.
Yeah. I'll be at a local con and they'll say, "Hey man, I love the podcast." And I'm like, "Dude, I like, it's great to meet you, get to talking to them." I mean, just being face to face, not only your listeners, but just with the community itself is just, I think it's a requirement, man. Like, I think it's a requirement in today's world to get out in front of people face to face. So I try to do it as often as I can.
So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it out?
Let's see. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you again in January, hopefully. I know you can't make B-Sides Philly this year, but yeah, looking forward to speaking with B-Sides coming down there in January. For those that are listening, check out barcodesecurity.com. I'll have more information posted on BarcodeCon in April there. Yeah, man, I just appreciate you having me on and being able to chat with you again.
Well, thanks for taking the time to join. And one of the things I always love is, or one of the things I like to discuss is things outside of just cybersecurity, because, having interest to be able to talk about content creation or podcasting, it's kind of a nice thing to be able to take time away from just purely security, but it's also nice to have friends like yourself and a community of, content creators that you can talk to and you can discuss podcasting and stuff, because it's good to have other passions besides just the day job, cybersecurity. So it's good to have other things.
Definitely.
Well, thanks again. I appreciate you joining me today. And thanks everyone for listening. Make sure to subscribe and share with your friends. And until next time, take care.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.